Hello, BookTube. I just recently became very belatedly aware of another BookTube event this summer that I'm going to be participating in anyway. I'm going to be doing it on an almost daily basis. So I thought I might make a video about it, find out if you're doing it or if you're interested in it. It's the Big Book Summer Challenge 2024. It was created by Sue Jackson. I'll leave a link that won't work to her channel. I first learned about it on Book Chat with Pat. I saw Book Chat with Pat do a video about how she plans to answer the Big Book Summer Challenge. And what it is, it involves books that are 400 pages or more, which counts as a big book. So do you plan on reading any big books this summer? Now, when I'm looking at other BookTube events, of course, Big Book Summer Challenge 2024 is not meant to work hand in hand with any other BookTube event. It just will, because if you're doing one book event, you're probably doing others. When I look at some of those others, I see that a lot of them lend themselves to books that are nowhere near 400 pages. Rocket Summer, for instance, is July, and that's about classic science fiction, most of which is not over 400 pages. There's also Book Trek, extending all summer long, all about Star Trek fiction. Most of that is not over 400 pages. Almost none of it is. There's a June on the Range. Same thing. Old-time westerns. Usually you're topping out at 150 pages. It's true that one summer event is Dune in June, and Dune is a very long book. But what about others? Of course, I'm curious to know. What other books, are you going to be participating in the Big Book Summer Challenge, whether you realize it or not? How many of the books do you plan on reading in the summer are going to be over 400 pages? And even if you're a mood reader and you don't plan your reading, you must have an idea of how open you are to books that are over 400 pages this summer. Even if you're a mood reader and you go wherever the wind blows you like an anemone, you must still have an answer to the question of whether or not come September you're going to look back at summer and be surprised that you read X number of books over 400 pages. Whether that number is 0 or whether that number is 20. You're still going to look back on that and be a little surprised, which means that a part of your brain that maybe isn't completely moon-driven, that maybe isn't completely thalamus-driven, it does have a rough idea of what you want to do and not do in the course of the summer. Mood readers. They're working my one good nerve. No matter what kind of a reader you are, you must have a vague sense of roughly how open you are to reading long books this summer. I would love to know all about it. How many of you knew about the Big Book Summer Challenge? Didn't tell me because you just know that I read any book that crosses my plate. I don't care how long it is. I certainly don't make any special allowance or any deep breathing exercises for a book that's 400 pages. I don't consider 400 pages to be a long book. So I looked at my shelves. I'm not talking here about rereads, for instance, or any of the big, huge works of history or biography that I regularly get from the Brattle Bookshop. I'm not talking about rereads. I'm also not talking about stuff that's going to crop up on the radar that I don't know about at the moment. I went through some of my shelves to look at some big books for the summer. And I pulled them out. I thought I'd go through them again. You've seen them all if you've watched every mail haul, but how many of you have watched every mail haul? Maybe not many. I realized only after the fact that I pulled all these out that I was pulling out the really big ones. The ones that are a third more than 400 or maybe twice as much as 400 pages, that's not the spirit. The Big Book Summer Challenge isn't March of the Mammoths. It's not asking you to go for the biggest books in your library. But these will do. I didn't. The number would be much longer if I went for books that just were technically crossing the line of 400 pages. So I thought we'd look at some of them. This first one is The Horse. This is Timothy Weingard. He does popular natural histories, and more power to him because he's really good at it. This can be done poorly. Specifically, it can be done lazily. This is a popular history of the horse. So what we know about its evolution, what we know about how its development has been changed by humans over the centuries, its long association with humans over the centuries, which is ending, which is kind of amazing. The long association that humans have with cats is not ending, much though I would like it to. The long human association with dogs is not ending. But the long human association with horses is ending. It'll be a slow end, but it is ending. They are not the principal engines of urban or suburban power anymore. They haven't been in a long time. you want to get somewhere, you'll use horsepower, but only as a euphemism. You won't use horses to do it. If you want to till your ground, you won't use horses. Probably not. You will probably use something else. You'll probably use something mechanized. This book will deal with all of that. I'm hoping that it will deal with a lot of other things too. I would love it. For instance, I haven't even dipped into this because this is June, right? No, this is July. I haven't even dipped into this. I would love it if the author would also take a look at the wild horse populations of the world. That would be great. But there's that, and this is 544 pages, so this counts. Then the next one is an author that I really like. I haven't dipped into this either. This is also a July book. This is Decade of Disunion. How Massachusetts and South Carolina led the way to Civil War, 1849 to 1861. This is by Robert Merry. I love this author. I think he can do no wrong, so he would have to go a long way to disillusion me in this book. He might not have come up with the subtitle to this book. He might not have anything to do with it, and I'm not going to judge a book by the subtitle. But Massachusetts did not lead the country to Civil War. Okay, Massachusetts led the country to abolish slavery. And if you think those two things are the same thing and should be, you're the villain in this story, which very much does have villains. It has good guys and it has villains. If you think that you have driven me to civil war because you are forbidding me to own people as property, then you're the bad guy. But we'll see. Maybe the author has... maybe the subtitle is the author's idea, and maybe he has an idea in mind for what he's going to say. I can't wait to see what it will be. But this is... okay, the back cover says that this is 8 pages long. This is 500 pages long. There you go. So there's that. Then we have this, Lev Grossman, this big thing. The Bright Sword, which I believe is this author's Arthurian book. This is a huge thing. Are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me this is 8 pages long? How big is this? Almost 700 pages long. And what have we got here? A gifted young knight named Colum arrives at Camelot to compete for a spot on the Round Table. But he's too late. King Arthur died 2 weeks ago at the Battle of Camlan, leaving no heir, and only a handful of the knights of the Round Table survive. They aren't the heroes of legend, like Lancelot or Gawain. They're the oddballs of the Round Table, from the edges of the story, like Sir Palomedes, the Saracen knight, Sir Dragonet, Arthur's fool, who was knighted as a joke. They're joined by Nimue, who was Merlin's apprentice until she turned on him and buried him under a hill. Together, this ragtag fellowship will set out to rebuild Camelot in a world that has lost its balance. That sounds like a lot of fun, and this is a great big thing. I think this comes out in July. Yeah, this comes out in July. I am probably waiting for the finished copy of this thing. I will nose around this week. I have to do quite a bit of publisher nosing around this week. I will nose around this week to see if the finished copy is forthcoming. Is something on the list? Is it near? Then let's see here. Are we still doing July? No, August. The Big Book Summer Challenge goes from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So June, July, and August, really, and then a bit of the end of the summer. And this next one is by Jonathan Mayberry, who's an author that I really, really like. This is in August. This is The Dragon in Winter. Fairly boring cover design, and also a title moratorium. Steve has a long list of title moratoriums, and one of his title moratoriums, don't call anything The Reckoning, don't call anything The Final Reckoning, The Final Gift, Dark Tide, anything Ascending, and also nothing in winter. Let's call an end to anything in winter, the something in winter. Let's get rid of that. But this is, as you can see, a Kagan the Damned novel. And actually, the previous 2 Kagan the Damned novels are also well north of 400 pages. So they would count. I read them both this summer. This is almost 600 pages. Just another adventure of the main character, Kagan, who I didn't particularly like in the first book. But the second book, I was coming around in the second book. I read the first book, didn't pay any attention to the fantasy community. They don't want anything to do with me. They don't want to admit me. They don't want me to make me one of their own. I tried real hard. I made overtures, but they are not. They are one of the most clannish communities on BookTube. You are either all fantasy all the time, and a cheerleader for the genre, and totally up on them, or you're not welcome. That's not. It's not an all genres, type free for all that we have going in the general YouTube community. The fantasy YouTube community is closed, effectively closed. You can be welcomed in. Belltube is a perfect example. You can be welcomed in, but only if you sing from the exact same page of the same hymnal, not for any other reason. You certainly can't be critical of this stuff the way I am. Which is a shame, because there are a lot of great booktubers there, and they are critical in their own way when they read these things. I wish that they were accepting of outsiders. That would be great to make some friends in that community, but aside from Jimmy Nuts, who's a friend with everybody and not hard to make a friend with. But that's a subject for another video. I got the impression with the Keg and the Damned books that everybody thinks that it really does pick up with the second book. And so I wasn't closing any doors when I finished the first one. I wasn't all that blown away. And the second one was much better. So I haven't got to this yet, but I'll wait for a finished copy. But it's nice and big. Certainly counts for the summer book challenge. Then we have something. This is also August. Yes, this is August. This is Benjamin Nathan's, and this is To the Success of Our Hopeless Cause, the Many Lives of the Soviet Dissident Union, dissident movement. So in the Soviet Union, there were objectors, there were refuseniks, there were all sorts of people who did not like the Soviet Union, did not want to co-opt their whole lives, did not want brown water on Wednesday and Friday, did not want to be dragged as a helpless serf to thermonuclear annihilation. And this is a big book about that. This is 816 pages. Haven't dipped into it at all. My pulse raises just a little when I contemplate this, because in the last few years, probably the last 5 or 6 years, every season, every year, almost like clockwork, a big historical study on some aspect of Russia comes along and blows me away. That has been happening for years now. I think that trend started when the New York Review of Books brought over Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. I think that's when it started. I think it was that. I was blown away. I absolutely loved it. I was so happy that they did that. And after that, I don't think there's been a year when there hasn't been a big doorstop Russian-related book. I mean, this is not. I don't think Benjamin Nathan is Russian. I don't think this is a very advanced copy. I don't think it's going to tell me anything about him. I thought I saw an author photo. It does. And you can never really tell because the Soviet Union and Russia before it had such an enormous Jewish population that you can never really tell by the name. Well, no, there's nothing on the author here. But I think it was that year, whatever that year was where Stalingrad was brought out. I think it was that came up before we were talking to each other, I'm pretty sure. And then every year after that, there's been some massive Russian-related work that has been amazing. Just amazingly good. One per year, year after year after year. Naturally, I'm wondering if this is the one for this year. There's one other candidate for this year that I've already seen that I thought was tremendously impressive. We will see. We will see. But it certainly qualifies. It's August. It's nice and long. Then we have this thing is just gigantic. How many pages are you? 800 pages. Yeah, this is Catherine Bucknell. This is her new biography of Christopher Isherwood, Inside Out. Huge thing comes out in August. Great. This publisher, FSG, they have just a completely different printing press for their ARCs. Their ARCs are always these handy little brick things, whereas the finished book is never like this. I wish the finished book had this dimension. This fits really well in the hand. The finished book is always taller, slightly thinner, heavier, a little more awkward. It's odd that the ARC, like for instance this thing, it's going to be easy. This is the same dimensions, basically. Not the same material, but the same dimensions as the hardcover will be. This is not at all. But it could be that it's the same dimensions as the trade paperback, although why would FSG do that? When with a book like this, you can't be sure it's going to get a paperback. This will go out to every library in the world. We'll go out to, if there are any gay reading associations anymore, there might not be. Nobody reads anymore, and the first people off that lifeboat were the gays. But if there are, a copy of that will go out to every one of those societies. But I don't know how well this will do with the public, the general public. In the Dog Days of August, a long literary biography of a writer who most of them don't know, I've never read. I can't wait. I am going to wait. I'm going to wait until I get the finished copy of this. But I've read every biography of Isherwood. I've read all of Isherwood. I've read all of his work. There were times, there have been periods in my life where I really, really appreciated his writing, even when I didn't think a lot of it was very good. So I'm the perfect audience for this thing. And it is perfect for the Big Book Summer Challenge. And then we'll do one more here. This is by Richard Evans, who did a trilogy about the Third Reich. Coming of the Third Reich in Power, and the Third Reich at War. I really cannot recommend that trilogy strongly enough. The more I go back to it, the more I reread it. I just recently reread a chunk of the Third Reich at War. The more I go back to it and reread it, the more amazing I find it. It really is incredible as a trilogy. And he has a new book coming out in August. And this is 640 pages. This is Hitler's People. Where he talks about the various people that made up the, I assume, ruling elite of the Third Reich, not the rank and file. Although I will read this author writing about anything, so I don't. He could be doing this. This could be about the chamber, the housemates of Hitler's people of the Third Reich. I still wouldn't care. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a great big thing coming out in August. And I'm looking at this pile now, and I'm realizing that I could have been a little bit more nuanced here. I picked a lot of really big books, but the Big Book Summer Challenge is not just about really big books. I will read all of these this summer, and I'll read anything else that crosses my path, anything at all. But you don't have to. You don't have to read 800-page books to meet the Big Book Summer Challenge. Just 400 pages or more. Maybe I'll do another video. I'll go over my shelves and find some 400-page books, and it'll be a totally different pile. These are some of the really big ones that are coming out this summer. I think there are probably 10 others. Aside from these, probably 10 other big books that I have as either ebook or they just aren't in the right place because everything's a mess. But the normal population of big books for a summer lineup. So these I will certainly do. I don't need to, like I said, I don't need to do deep breathing calisthenics to tackle a 400-page book. I tackle whatever crosses my path the way that it does. The bigger, the better. So I'm going to read all of these this summer and more. But what about you? Do you take it easy on yourself in the summer when you look at the Big Book Summer Challenge? Do you think, oh, that's not for me. I want shorter books, lighter books. I punish myself. Maybe you go to school the rest of the year and you punish yourself with bigger or more abstruse books. So in the summer, it's all light fare. I'd love to hear about it either way. So there's yet another BookTube event. It's obviously not a big strain for me because I'm going to read these things anyway. But what about you? I'd love to know. Are you taking part in the Big Book Summer Challenge? Aside from Dune, that is. Let me know. And I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.